What's happening, everyone? This is another Adventure Box podcast episode. This is where we talk about how we're going to split up the class now. All those that were going for American history are going to be going down the road of age of exploration, while all those going to ancient civilizations will be going down into African histories. Now, we only have one podcast, so we have to actually combine these onto both. Let's see if this works out. Basically, the way that we're going to split it up is Monday and Wednesdays, we're going to do Age of Exploration and then ongoing throughout American history. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to go down the road of African history and on through that. And that'll be Egypt, that'll be Persia, Babylonians, the Greeks, the Romans, and so on and so forth. This is a lot of fun. You're going to really enjoy this because we're going to go through all the different parts of history, all about, like right with ancient history, all about the same time, the ancient civilizations coming together. So, but you have to be able to break this off from the other study, which is just the American history. Now, it's going to be a little bit easy if you want to go to our YouTube channel to be able to pick out which ones are which. Or if you want to just listen on Mondays and Wednesdays, that'll work out as well. Or we're also going to set it up on our website so you can actually see if you're doing American history, these are the ones to listen to. If you're listening to African history and then Egyptian and so forth, civilizations, these are the ones to listen to watch. So yes, it might be a little confusing at first, but hopefully this works out. If it doesn't, we're going to have to figure out something else because we really don't want to start two podcasts in two different locations and then try to bring in other people. It just doesn't work very well as for how we're looking at it. But today we're going to be talking about the Age of Exploration. This is actually one of my most interesting, exciting eras in time. This is what I love. Yes, I wanted to be an archaeologist, as I told you before. But no matter what, one of the big reasons is because I wanted to be an explorer. I wanted to make a difference in the world and find new places. As you know, almost all the land all around the world has been explored. Almost. There are bits and pieces that have not, including the Amazons, where they actually found a tribe that they had not known about until just recently. And this is like maybe 10 years back. But that's recent. So in the Age of Exploration, this is where exploration really began. This is where we all of a sudden started sailing to unknown places, including before the Age of Exploration. There was a lot of spices that were over in India and the Asian area. So Asia had a lot of spices. It had a lot of new innovations and technology that Europeans had not seen. And so they wanted to go over there. And what used to be available was called the Silk Road. Well, the Silk Road was basically a way to keep every continent connected, at least in that hemisphere. So you had Europe contacting Africa, contacting the Middle East and Asia. Well, you couldn't really get down much into the Indonesian and Australian areas until later on, but China basically was able to create this Silk Road, or with the collaboration of all other countries, this road or this pathway so people could get goods from Europe to Asia, Asia to Africa, Europe to Africa, and so forth. And so in the Age of Exploration, everyone's like, oh, we love doing this. And then what happened? The Crusades happened. What happened after the Crusades? And actually before the Crusades, the Caliphates happened. When the Caliphates happened, it's when the Islamic tribes basically came over and started taking over much of the Middle East, which also shut down a lot of the Silk Road. So then Jerusalem was taken over, which is why the Crusaders came down and trying to open up the road to Jerusalem, because that was two things. One, it allowed the pilgrimage going to their holy country, holy land, being the Christians, being able to want to go back to Jerusalem. The other thing is that there was the Silk Road that was attached to that area. They both met in basically the same area. Well, the problem is you can't get to this road if one civilization takes control over it. If one civilization takes over it, they're going to charge you. You're going to have to bribe them. They're going to tax you. They're going to be a lot of different things. And they may just kill you. or enslave you, even worse. Yeah, I don't know which one's worse, death or slavery by the caliphates. So, and when we're talking about the caliphates, you're going to be learning about this in the ancient civilizations near the end of the ancient civilizations. So stay tuned for all that. But going back to Age of Exploration, during this time, people were like, you know what? I don't want to pay for the Silk Road. I don't want the possibility of us being taken captive or enslaved by going the Silk Road. I don't want to be killed by taking the Silk Road. So what did they do? Well, they decided, you know what, there had to be a better way. This is when shipbuilding, sailing became this massive endeavor. There were ships everywhere. We think we have a lot of ships, all the steel-made ships and such. There were so many wooden ships, sailing vessels, that were all over the place at this point. So at this point, we were saying, hey, as humans, and those in Europe were saying, hey, we need to find a better way. We have all of these ships. Why can't we find a way around Africa to get to India? There's got to be a way. Some people had this theory. Now, interesting enough, a lot of times we talk about people not believing that there was the American continent, that if you sailed west, that you'd either fall off the planet or you'd find yourself over to Asia. No one really knew about the continent that was the Americas. Interesting enough, before that point, there was a lot of people that didn't even think that you could go around Africa to get to India. Vasco da Gama was one that actually proved that you could actually go around the tip of Good Hope into Asia, to bypass the Silk Road, bypass the caliphates, bypass all those, to find a way to get to India. Because you have the now after this was done, you would have the British East India Company, you'd have the French East India Company, you'd have the Dutch West India Company. You have all these different companies that were all built upon getting their ships all the way around the continent and into India. And why they actually play a bigger role, these companies, we're going to get into that later on inside the Age of Exploration. Okay, so now let's talk about the ships and what they did. Okay, so there's a lot of ships that were going around. Now, a lot of times we like to focus on Europe, of course, because they did a lot more of the ships, using the ships to overcome the problems with the caliphates. So they went around. But did you know, before 1492, there was another group that actually found the Americas? That's right. We're going to talk about these more tomorrow. This is the Norse explorers. The Norse, you would actually might know them as the Vikings. And Leif Erikson, Eric the Red, all part of the story of finding the Americas back around the 11th century, 300 to 400 years before Columbus. Don't really talk about that much. Now, at the same time, there's questions on if it's actually 100% accurate. Because, I mean, we'll go into this tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Wednesday. The reason why this is a controversial issue is because there's no settlements of the Vikings in Canada where they would have lived. This land that they called Vinland. Vinland was a land that the Vikings found after going west from Greenland and Iceland. So they traveled that far and found an area and began to settle there. And then the fighting with indigenous, not having the right resources, they left and went back. So there are sagas, which are the books of the Vikings or the Norse people, that actually write about this. But at the same time, there's not 100% factual findings, minus what archaeologists have been able to find over in that area. So I'm not going to say it's fiction. It's definitely not fiction. There are some artifacts and stuff like that that's found from the Vikings. But how much we know about it, it's not 100% clear. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. So this today is just the overview. We're just talking about European travel. The next thing to know about is the early European contact. This is Columbus. This is John Cabot. These are a bunch of different. In week 2, I'm just double checking that this is true. It's week 2 that we will be looking at the early Europeans. Sorry, I'm actually using the curriculum as I'm going through this, so you'll be able to look at it in your curriculum. So the first week we're going to be talking about the Norse and describing a lot of the early European contact, but we're also going to go into Christopher Columbus and also John Cabot. Now, if you haven't heard John Cabot, you will. He's very important. Columbus, everyone's heard of Columbus. Also very important, also very misunderstood. So we're going to go over that. The next week, we're going to be talking about the Portuguese and the Spanish. They were the main hub. They were the main starters of this movement of the Age of Exploration. Whether it was going around the continent and finding India through Vasco da Gama, or if it was going to the Americas with like the Amerigo Vespucci, or Pedro Cabral, or Juan Ponce de Leon. These are awesome stories. I can't wait to tell you about them. But these are great things. Now, you can go through each of these weeks differently. If you want to read them all, great. Read them all. There's a lot of information there. If you want to team up with somebody else or multiple people and everyone talk about it at the end of the week, great. Pick one of the subjects that is in there. There's an overview for every week, and then there's 4 subjects to choose from. Everyone except for the fourth week, because that is actually the British. So we actually have another one in there. And we're not going to talk about them anymore in the podcast as much as we were before. Last month, we actually talked about every single instance that we have in the chapter. This time, we're going to go a brief overview. So tomorrow, it will be, sorry, not tomorrow. I'm going to have to learn this too. Wednesday, it's going to be the Norses and also the early European contact. The next one is going to be Columbus and Cabot, and you're going to have to read more about it. But we're going to give you an overview so you can say, oh, I want to learn about this and I want to learn about that. And you get to choose that. And then maybe the next year you come out, or 2 years down the road, you come back to the same exact curriculum and say, I'm going to pick up this one and I'm going to pick up this one because I want to learn about them. You get to do that. Now, going back, so week 2, we have 3 different people that you can choose from when it comes to the Portuguese and the Spanish. Because the 4th subject is actually a very touchy one. It's the origins of slavery and its use in ancient times. Not just, see at this point, we don't have slavery in the United States, in the Americas. There's no slavery in the Americas because people are just finding out about the Americas. But what there is that the slavery was happening over in Europe, over in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. And you know how we mentioned Africa last? It's because slavery was not actually first in Africa. There's so much to it. I'm going to tell you about it, but you're going to have to wait. So I might just do the first day, I might just do Amerigo Vespucci, Pedro Cabral, and Juan Ponce de Leon all together. And then we'll use Wednesday for the origins of slavery. This is a very interesting one. You're going to learn a lot of the background people don't talk about. And so we're going to talk about this, and you're going to learn everything. And you're going to become more understanding of what slavery is, what it was, and the unknown about it. And there is nothing good or anything about slavery. Let me just put that out there. The mystery is what is not taught in schools. The mystery is what you're not taught by most books, because we all focus on certain things in our history, and this course does not do that. We focus on everything. We want you to explore everything, and so we get to do that through this course. Okay, the next one is the British role. Now, the British role, as you know, is basically what's going to create North America, both Canada and also South America. Canada as well as the United States. The Portuguese and the Spanish really settled Central America and South America. The British took over the upper portions, and also the French. Now, in next month, we're going to be talking about colonial life. And we'll talk more than just the Spanish, the Portuguese, the French, and the British. We'll also talk about the Swedish and the Dutch and how they all work together in creating what we have in the Americas today. So in the British role, we're going to be talking about the British colonial ambitions. We do that because there's a lot of small things that happen. And then we're going to talk about Sir Francis Drake, Sir Walter Raleigh, Jamestown, and Henry Hudson. Now, I could actually take Jamestown out and put it in with next month. And I think I actually have a section of it in next month. But Jamestown is the first colony in North America. Essential to learn about, mysterious to learn, and fun to be part of. Okay, so the next one after that is the French contributions to the Age of Exploration. And this includes Giovanni de Verrazano. And then there's Giovanni, I've got to make a correction on this. But, and then there's Samuel D. Chaplin, who is also very big at this time. Other things in this, like I said last time, the next portion of the curriculum is cross-curricular math, cross-curricular science, cross-curricular English, and also your tests, your assessments, to see if you actually understand what's being taught here. And so go through that. You're going to have a lot of fun being part of this. We also have things like coloring pages. We also have things like activities from the adventure box. So we have a lot to share with you. And it is really exciting because there's so much that no one ever really talks about. We're going to talk to you about it right here. We're going to have fun doing it. I hope you can join us. I'm not going to make this too long because this is just the overview. Wait for Wednesday when we talk about the Norse exploration and early European contact. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everyone, and have a great day. Bye. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.